Well, never mind. Stop fiddling with your screen, Mr. Salles. Good morning, Year 11. So last minute revision, it does actually work. So I thought, what the hell? I'll put on my happy shirt and come and wish you the best. But I'm also going to give you some really practical advice this morning. So it's going to be quite a warm day. Enjoy that. That sun will be there when you get out of the exam, ready to congratulate you on your efforts. How do I know you're going to work hard? Well, you're up and about revising now, aren't you? So you're semi-prepared. So what is my advice that's going to calm you down, get you ready to smash this exam? Well, first, congratulate yourself on your hard work so far. Just doing these exams is grueling. Like, I feel slightly exhausted making all these videos, and there's no pressure on me at all. And I know that you guys feel under pressure, but actually, you've got through this far. You're like 20 miles into the marathon. You're going to do this. Just keep plodding on and you're going to get to the finish line. Don't give up in this exam. Now, this literature exam is actually the nicest exam you get. Everybody knows the Shakespeare play quite well because you've studied it for so long. The poetry question is actually a proper English question, and there aren't any right answers, so you can't really go wrong in it. And the comparison question, which looks like a complete pain to do, is only worth 8 marks. So even if you crash and burn on it, you're going to lose hardly any marks. You're still likely to get 4 out of 8. So this exam is a godsend. The other cool thing about it is you're getting slightly longer than students did before. So if you make a mistake, you've got time to put it right. There's plenty of time to write in this exam. And so let's think about exam tactics. So I'm in the exam and I can't remember the quotation I want. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Do not panic. The examiner's reward references to the text. So rather than worry that you can't remember the right words and then not put the point in, put the point in and paraphrase what you think the words might have been, or refer to what was going on at the time. So don't let panic stop you putting it in if your memory suddenly pulls like a mental fart. Don't worry, just keep writing. Now, all of these questions reward you for building an argument. So there are 5 connectives that you're always going to go back to that will guarantee you top grades. And I'm not making this up. If you actually use these words, and obviously you've got to make sense with what you say after it, but if you keep remembering to use these words, you're going to get top grades. So what are they? Because, therefore, although, however, consequently. If you just keep using those 5 words all the way through your paragraphs, you will be building an argument. And if you're using although and however, you will be looking at more than one way of looking at things. That's at the top of the mark scheme. Okay, analysis is at the top of the mark scheme. So how do you analyse? Well, you look at therefore and consequently. And you look at alternatives, however and although. So honestly, these 5 words, so easy, use them. What I do when you get into the exam hall, as soon as you've got the paper, I'd write those 5 words on the top of the paper, unless you're forbidden to write by the exam invigilators. I'd just write those 5 words down. Write them down now. Put them on your phone. Don't write them on your hand because you might get accused of cheating. But put them in here, and then you get into the exam. There'll be lots of faff going on, people filing in, people feeling nervous. You're not, you're going to be chill. You're just going to go in and think, right, I've got 5 words to write down. I think I can remember those. I'm going to use those all the way through the exam. I put those on the front of my exam paper, and there'll be like a visual reminder. If you can't cope with all 5, then substitute these 3. Because, but, and so. Now, they do exactly the same job as those 5, but they're easier to remember. Because, but, so. And they do the same job. Because you explain stuff in detail, but you look at alternative point of view, so you move up the mark scheme, and so you reach conclusions and opinions. And so you're therefore taking opposite views and coming to an agreed opinion that you think is best. Again, puts you up in the top of the mark scheme. Okay, what else are you going to write on the front of the exam paper while the invigilators are whittering on like, cabin staff on an airplane? When the oxygen mask comes down, blah, 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 here are the escape routes. I've heard it all a million times. Or if you've never been on a plane, well, maybe this summer. I hope so. Anyway, my point is, you've heard all that spiel that they give you at the beginning of the time, loads of times. So, while they're whittering on, you are using your preparation time to help you. Just like tune them out. They don't matter. But don't do anything you're not supposed to. They do matter that way, okay? So if you're allowed to, and I think you will be, write down 3 purposes that you think Shakespeare had in writing the play. Now, if I give you a purpose now and you've never heard of it, don't worry about that, yeah? You don't want to go into the exam confused. So stuff that you know already, why has Shakespeare written this particular play? Just put it down. Now, if you're doing Romeo and Juliet or you're doing Macbeth, which is probably 90% of you, one of Shakespeare's purposes is always to explore patriarchal society. And you're going to put that down. Unless you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, in which case, put down something else. Think through, why did Shakespeare write this play? Put it down on your paper. The reason I'm saying that is when you're writing an argument in that first question on Shakespeare, it's going to be a better argument if you refer to Shakespeare's purpose. And having those jotted down on the front of the page will remind you that that's where the marks are. It's not, spotting methods and spotting techniques. It's thinking, right, why has Shakespeare constructed these characters in this way? What's he getting at? So patriarchal society fits both plays, fits any play, use it, and then other things that you know. All right, so that's the fannying about at the beginning. Everybody else is walking in silence. They're all nervous, but you're not. You have a plan, and you're just going to go in, relax, jot those things on the front of the paper. Right, first question comes up, and unusually for a Mr. Salles video, I'm telling you, you can chill out with this exam and do it in the same order that it's set. That's actually a helpful order. If you want to change it because you practiced that in the mocks, go ahead and change it, what the hell. But to me, the order makes sense. You can just relax with it. Write down your time limits, because there's only 2 to worry about. You're thinking, right, when's the end of the Macbeth question and when's the end of the poetry question? Write those down in advance so that you know when to stop. Why is it better to stop writing a question and start a new one? Because there are no tiers in this exam. That means the examiners have gone to great lengths to make the first marks in the exam, or any question, really easy to get. Because they're worried about students who haven't done any revision or haven't paid attention in school. And they want everybody to be able to get a grade, which is lovely. And it means like on a 30-mark question, the first 10 marks are like, you can get those probably in the first 6 minutes of writing, genuinely. And the first 10 minutes of writing at most. So if you run out of time on one of the questions and you think, I just want to make my answer perfect, well, you might only gain 1 mark for that extra bit of perfection, or 2 marks. Whereas getting 2 marks at the beginning of the next question, you'll do like that. So don't overrun your time limits. Now, the other thing is, there's no points for finishing the exam early. I know there's a massive sense of achievement where you're like, oh, yes, I've done it. Oh, I've got 15 minutes to go, looking round at everybody else. And I'm like, yes, stuff you. No, that's not how the exam works. You're like, my God, I've run out of ideas. I don't know what to write next. Okay, I'll go on to my next question. And then I get to the end of the exam and I've got 15 minutes left. And it's like, whoa. I've got 15 more minutes to zap the examiner with some more ideas. Mate, I am just going to blitz this. Right, Macbeth. Romeo, what have I forgotten, Shakespeare? I didn't mention the nurse. Nobody talks about the nurse. Or I didn't write about Malcolm or whatever it is, I've got a new point. Right, where am I going to put that in? Yes, it will go here. You put like a little number where it's going to go on your paper. So there's your paper and it's like, oh, it's going to go there. I'll put number 1 and then underneath I'll write 1 and then I'll write what I want to put in there. And the examiner will be able to go, oh yeah, that goes in there. Yeah, use your time. Every single extra minute you've got is an extra point you can make, which is an extra grade. Like, use every single minute. You are tested on, vocabulary and sentence variety and spelling and punctuation in this. 4 marks on the Shakespeare and 4 marks on the poetry. But don't stress about that, because you only get, if you spend time checking those things, it'll probably only affect 1 mark out of those 4. Whereas if you write a new paragraph with a new argument, that will give you much more than 1 mark. So don't waste time checking through your work. It is just not worth it. Okay, so what words am I going to be able to use when I'm writing about quotations? Now, interestingly, you could just use this 1 word every time. You could use the word suggests every single time. It would be a bit boring in your writing, but what I'm trying to convey to you here is that as long as you're explaining stuff with suggests, you're always going to get higher marks. So that 1 word is just perfect for you. There are 2 other words that go along with that. You can change suggest to implies. If you're really having a mare, you can use shows. What the hell? Because it will still lead you to a good explanation. But suggests and implies. And then, because you always want to write about the author's purpose, Shakespeare's purpose, the poet's purpose, use the word emphasises. Yeah, just use that word and it will force you to think, oh, what is he trying to emphasise here? Like, what idea is he trying to get across? And just using the word emphasises will force you to come up with something interesting to say about the quotation or the character or the extract. Right. The extract is a bit of a bugbear of mine because the the mark scheme says, look, we want a well-structured argument to give you a top grade. And it's like, well, I want you to get a top grade because that's why I'm here on YouTube. So you have to write an argument. And starting with the extract can get in the way of your top grade, of your argument, because like if I'm building an argument, I'm probably going to want to start at the beginning of the play and work my way through. That's the easiest way to build an argument. When I train teachers and I say, write a plan for this essay, nearly every teacher goes through the play and writes down 8 points chronologically. Like they do 8 points and they work through the play. That's what they do naturally. And then I say to them, okay, so where would the extract fit into that? And they look at their 8 points and they go, oh, for me it would fit in at number 3, for me it would fit in at number 5, for me it would fit in at number 2. And I say, okay, brilliant. So when you write this essay, dear teacher, write it chronologically as you move through the play. And then when you get to that point in your argument, get the extract out and whip out some quotations from that extract to put in your essay at that stage because it fits your argument. And the teachers go, God, do you know, I never thought of that. What a fantastic idea. I'll teach my students to do that. But, I don't get to advise that many schools a year. So most of you will have been practicing starting with the extract. Like, crack on. Keep doing that because it's not wrong. It's right. The examiners say start with the extract. But it's not in the mark scheme. Yeah, so if you don't start with the extract, like the examiner won't even notice possibly, other than, oh, this student has written a coherent argument. I think I want to give it higher marks. Don't change stuff now if you've already been succeeding in the mock. Yeah, if you've got the grades that you want in the mock by starting with the extract, you don't have to take this advice. Yeah, you just carry on because the most important thing is you feel in control in this exam. And I don't want to give you some advice that suddenly makes you think, Jesus, I'd not thought of that. You're blowing my mind. Don't do this to me. Because that's not the purpose of the video. The purpose of the video is to give you that confidence going into the exam that you know what you're doing. So you can start with the extract. You can get a top grade by doing that. Although I would say it is still harder because how do you build an argument? The main way is to go back to Shakespeare's purpose. Yeah. So even if you start with the extract, Say how that illustrates Shakespeare's purpose in presenting the characters in this way. You're going to link it to the patriarchy, and that will therefore show you've got an argument to start with. This is what Shakespeare's trying to do. And then dealing with the extract first will still build an argument for you. All right. How many quotations from the extract? Doesn't matter. Like, you need a few, 2 or 3. Yeah, but you have to show that you read the extract. But in the mark scheme again, and the advice to the examiners is, doesn't matter how many quotations you get in the extract. The only reason that the exam board have put that extract there is because they know there's going to be some people who haven't revised and they want them to have something to write about. So you could conceivably get some person who's never read the play before and they've just rocked up, and then, God, what the hell am I going to write? Oh, they've given me an extract. I can write about that and I can get some marks. And you can. So it's just there to help students who know nothing. But if you know a lot, the extract will get in the way of your top grade unless you follow the 2 bits of advice I've just given you. All right, that's my Shakespeare done and dusted. What or is it? Do I need to write an introduction? Well, not as an introduction, but you do have to write your thesis statement. And the thesis statement is basically, why is Shakespeare doing this? So if the question is about love, what is Shakespeare saying about love? The question's about ambition, like, why is ambition so important to Shakespeare in this play? Why is he dealing with it at all? And so you will then have something to argue about as you go through the essay. So you're going to start with that. I'm not calling it an introduction, I'm calling it a thesis statement. Do you have to write a conclusion? Yeah, you do, because you want to construct an argument, don't you? So your last paragraph is going to be in conclusion or consequently, and you're going to refer back to the ideas that you wrote down on the front of your exam paper. Remember those 3 things that Shakespeare was up to when he wrote the play that you've put in your thesis statement at the beginning of the question. So, but they're not like massive, you're just doing those things in a sentence or 2. All right, Shakespeare's done. We now have the poem. The poem is a gift to you because everybody's got to understand the poem. So it's not going to be hard. It's going to be an easy poem, like super easy, because even people getting a grade 2 have to be able to understand the poem. That is the law, according to Ofqual and the exam boards. So we're sorted. It's not going to be a tough poem. The other major thing about the poem is it's going to have easy methods to spot. And these will be the methods, like these are guaranteed. You will definitely get simile and metaphor. God, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but I haven't seen one that doesn't. You will probably get repetition, you will probably get personification, and you will definitely get a contrast. Yeah, there'll definitely be a contrast between the beginning of the poem and the end of the poem. That's how all poems work. Every poem written in the history of humanity, and probably if dogs and cats could write poems as well, there would be contrast from the beginning to the end. Contrast is a method. So as long as you write about the beginning and when you get to the end of your essay, you write about the end and say how it's contrasted and changed, like, you're going to get a method and you're going to get better marks because you'll be showing how the poets changed our point of view or our experience. So, contrast. What other things are definitely going to come up? Alliteration. What am I going to say about it? I'm going to go to that go-to word, emphasize. Emphasizes. Because you're probably thinking, I don't know why he's used this or she's used this alliteration. What am I going to say? And you just start your sentence. This alliteration emphasizes, and what it emphasizes is whatever it is you're thinking about those words. Like whatever you think, that's what you're going to write. Is it to create a feeling of happiness, sadness? Are we supposed to feel something that the character is feeling? Are we supposed to reject the character's feelings? Doesn't matter. Whatever's in your head is correct because you've spotted it. Yeah, you've spotted the alliteration and you're just going to say it emphasizes. So those are the things that will definitely come up. I personally love sibilance when it comes up, that repetition of the letter S, because I know in advance what the purposes are. 1, they are to create a feeling of peace and tranquility and relaxation. Soothing S sounds do that. Or they are sinister. Repeated S's are like hisses reminding me of evil intentions. Yeah, those are the only 2 possible purposes for sibilance. So if you spot it, perfect. Is there a secret list of methods that you've got to write about in the poetry question? There is no list. Literally anything is a method. So anything you notice is a method. You don't have to write about structure, there's no marks, particularly for finding structural points. If you notice something about structure that you think, oh yeah, this is relevant, I can see why the poet has put in this repetition, that is structure. I would always write about that. If I can see why there's this rhyme, if I can see why these stanzas are here, then write about it. But if you're in there thinking, Jesus, there's 4 stanzas here and I got no reason why, okay, I'll just riff on the number 4. Oh, it's because there are 4 seasons, or oh, it's because there are 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, or he wrote this at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, those are all pants reasons. Don't make up stuff. It's not a hard poem, and you don't have to pull something out of the air. So when you get to structure, you don't have to put anything in about structure at all, unless there's something you're confident about. Oh yeah, I've noticed this. Right, okay, I'll write about that. That will be a method. Right. Always write about the end of the poem last, because that's a way of showing the examiner you've had an argument, not like had an argument with the examiner. No, you've constructed an argument. But even if you haven't, even if your points going through were a bit random. And the other way is, if you write about the beginning first and the end last, then whatever you write will actually look like a well-constructed argument. Hooray, the examiner will go, this student is a genius. They're in the exam and they're under pressure and everyone else is cracking up around them, but they have remained calm and they've started with the beginning and finished with the end and wrote in conclusion, and they've got an argument. Oh yes, what were the 5 words that forced you to build an argument? Now remember, because, therefore, however, although, consequently. They don't have to be in that order, except for you definitely want consequently at the end for your conclusion. All right, that's the poetry question sorted. Now we get to the comparison question. You only need 3 comparisons. Yeah, you're not doing massive detailed quote analysis because you only got 15 minutes. So just 3 comparisons. You can get 6 marks out of 8 with 3 comparisons, and you can get 4 marks out of 8 with 3 comparisons. And so let's imagine that's all you get. You've only dropped a mark that you could have got. Yeah. So you're going to focus on 3 comparisons. If you can do 4 comparisons, then you have a chance of 7 or 8 marks. Yeah. So this is not a question that needs loads and loads of analysis. It needs loads and loads of comparisons. Compare. Each comparison, use a quotation. So 3 quotations for 3 comparisons, 4 quotations for 4 comparisons. It's really just a point scoring exercise. It's not even English. It's like me walking into a hotel, taking you with me, and we sit down in the lounge area, and I say to you, do you know what? I think this lounge is similar to your living room at home, but also different. And you go, yeah, well, obviously. And I say, well, just tell me about the differences. And you'd be like, are you kidding? I said, no, it's easy, isn't it? And you go, yeah, it's different because this is really big and my living room isn't as big as this. And normally, the people in my living room are people who I like and have invited, whereas here, there are lots of people I don't know. And it is honestly as simple as that. The comparison question isn't an English question. It's really not. And it's also easy for you because you've already read the first poem and written a 30-mark answer on it, which means you've got loads to say. So you just write down something from your previous answer from the poetry, and then you go, right, how is that different or similar in the new poem? It's similar, it's different. And the examiners don't care. Actually, they'll give you a poem that is very similar, so it'll be easy for you, because remember, even people getting grade 2 have to be able to read the new poem and say, oh, that's similar or different. But literally, you're just boshing out comparisons and chucking in quotations to prove it. It's the dumbest question in the world. But the other way to think about it is, man, there's 8 free marks going here. All I've got to do is write. And if I don't get full 8 marks, I'll get 6. So I've only got 2 marks missing from potential 100%. So, really don't stress about it, other than speed. And so let's talk about speed. Speed is the most important thing in an exam because points make prizes. The more points I write, the more marks I get. The more marks I get, the higher my grade. And I know, and this is the great thing, I know that when I look around in the exam, but don't do that, right? But if you find yourself looking around because you just suddenly have a bit of exhaustion or something's not gone the way you want, if you look around, you will notice other people looking around. And one thing is absolutely certain, when they're looking around, they ain't scoring any marks because they're not writing anything. So because all you have to do in the exam is write better than other people in the country, because that's how the exams are graded, everybody's marks are just put on this big line and you get the grade depending on how many people have done well. So if the top 15% have to get a grade 7 and above, then whatever the marks are is kind of irrelevant because, if everybody in the country writes really badly, you're still going to get 15% getting 7 and above, or that's actually about 24% will get 7 and above. And the examiners are going to give those grades away no matter how everyone scores in the exam. So you just have to score more than other people, and you do that by keeping writing. Handwriting. So the handwriting is the thing that will most slow you down. Don't be super neat. Be neat enough that somebody else who doesn't know you can read your handwriting. So not your teacher, not your mum, not you, but someone else in class. Imagine you gave this bit of writing to somebody else you know. Would they be able to read it? And that's as good as it needs to be. It doesn't need to be any better than that. You don't get any extra marks for neatness. In fact, you get lower marks because your neat writing has taken you much longer to do. So you've written fewer points. So go in and think, right, how much can I push my messiness if I'm a neat writer? Can I push it, make it 20% messier? Well, that might buy you an extra 10 minutes over the full 105 that you've got. You might have an extra 10 minutes because you've written more quickly. Well, that's 10 minutes where you're going to get extra marks because points make prizes. So that's, I think, a really good way to motivate myself when I get in the exam is I'm going to blitz this. Blitz, 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 blitz. Just going to keep writing. I don't have to spend ages checking through because, as Mr. Salles told me, I'm only going to increase my whole paper by maybe 1 mark if I spot loads of mistakes and change them. Whereas every time I write a new point in like a 30-mark question, or imagine doing an extra comparison on the poetry question. That's an extra 2 marks straight away. Like, result. So use your time that way. Right. What happens if I get a question that I haven't prepared for? Let's prepare for it now. So let's imagine you get a minor character who you haven't particularly revised, like you know about them. So worst case scenario, I'll do Macbeth first and then Romeo and Juliet. Worst case scenario, you get the porter. Oh my God, why is the porter there? Okay. And this, I'm not just going to tell you about the porter. It's going to be about any minor character that you haven't prepared for. Shakespeare has put that minor character in order to contrast with a major character. That's the main reason the character's there. Even if they've only got 1 line, they're there to create a contrast with the main character. And your job is to think, okay, what's being contrasted here? Well, contrast is easy. If I put up 2 things and say, right, contrast that, you'll all come up with different ways. This one's transparent, that one's not, this one's black, this one's got no color, this one's solid, this one's got a liquid in it. Like, it's literally like that. When you come up with contrasts, there aren't like a list that the examiner has in their head or in their mark scheme. It's just like whatever you notice will count. So contrast. Contrast, of course, is a method. And when you're writing about the contrast, you'll be writing about the author's purpose. So automatically, you're at least at a grade 6, just because you did that. I want to drink some water. As a visual cue to you, because you've probably got water with you, of what to do if you get a minor character you haven't prepared for. And the other great thing about that is instead of just writing about the minor character, you now legitimately get to write about the major character because that's part of the contrast, isn't it? So the porter, he contrasts with Macbeth, and he's like super lowborn. He makes all these jokes about penises, which I'm not going to explain now, because because the porter probably won't come up anyway. But he's got low humour, which we then contrast to the noble Macbeth. And Shakespeare could be saying, oh, well, the porter's there to show how Macbeth, despite appearances, is actually even worse than this drunken old fool, the porter. Yeah, so the contrast is there to show class division, but then to say that there's a moral difference and Macbeth's even worse than this guy who's been up all night drinking. I'm not going to keep banging on about Porter because, like I said, you won't get him. But, you know, if you get Macduff, well, he's there to contrast with Macbeth, isn't he? And you can come up with all sorts of ways that he is a contrast or a counterpoint to him. Let's jump into Romeo and Juliet. Oh, my God, they've asked me about the flipping nurse. I haven't prepared the nurse. What's she there for? Well, she's a contrast, either to Juliet or to Lady Capulet. Easy. Yeah. Why is Shakespeare making this contrast? Well, it's because he wants to show this about Lady Capulet. You know, that she's a completely useless mother compared to the nurse. But then at the end, the nurse turns out to be a terrible mother as well because she tells Juliet, go ahead and marry Paris, even though you're already married to Romeo. It's convenient. Yeah, your soul will go to hell, but like hell's a few years away. Like, why worry? So minor character, just contrast it to the main characters and you will come up with loads of really obvious ideas, which aren't obvious to you now because you haven't had that question. But when you get that question in the exam, and I don't think you will, but if you do, just chill out, relax. Okay. Last tip. When I'm nervous, I tend to breathe too quickly. And so I just need a technique to slow down my breathing before the exam. Whatever it is that works for you. The easiest is to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. I actually find that quite hard to do, but there you go, that's the tip. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. There is a meditation technique, which is bizarre, but if you breathe in for 4, hold your breath for 4, and breathe out for 4, it will calm you down, really. And what are you going to think about when you're breathing? Just go back to the author's purpose. Like, you know what Shakespeare's purpose is, you've put it down in your exercise books and your practice essays. There are no surprises that way. The purposes will be the same when you get in the exam. Just relax. I am really excited for you. I know that sounds a bit bizarre, but if you've been watching my videos, I know that you're going to get lots of high grades. I've no idea whether my prediction will come true. That'll be something interesting to see. But good luck in the exam. See you on the other side.